The scent hits you first, a dry, dusty perfume of ancient paper and beeswax, undercut by the faint, briny tang of the sea seeping through the window shutters. A single candle flame dances, its light sliding like liquid gold across the polished brass of a forgotten sextant, making the shadows in the corners of the room seem to stretch and breathe. But this quiet sanctuary of charts and silent stars is about to become a powder keg, because when pirates try to go straight, their past has a funny way of washing ashore, especially when there's treasure involved, and a code that demands blood for every gold coin. It's a romantic notion, isn't it? The pirate code. A brotherhood of the sea bound by honor. But in reality, it was often just a flimsy, blood-soaked contract used to justify settling old scores with a blade. Hi, Guy. Tonight we delve into the shadowy world of piracy's golden age, a world where fortunes were made and lost faster than a cutlass could flash. You'll be walking the planks, feeling the salt spray on your face. And perhaps, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It truly helps the channel find others who appreciate these quiet journeys into the past. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are Rachel Wall. And that name, once whispered with a mix of fear and admiration in the grimiest taverns of the Caribbean, now feels like a costume you were forced to shed. A royal pardon is a heavy thing. It scrubs the blood from your hands but leaves the stains on your soul. You sit in this map room, a place that once represented freedom and endless horizons but now feels like a cage paneled in mahogany and regret. The air is thick with the ghosts of old voyages, each chart on the wall a testament to a life you swore to leave behind. Your fingers trace the faded coastline of Hispaniola on a map curled at the edges from sea damp. You remember the heat, the taste of stolen rum, the weight of a pistol in your sash. It feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like yesterday, a clandestine meeting. That's what your cousin Thomas called it. He always did have a flair for the dramatic, a man whose idea of danger was a miscalculated ledger. But the tension you feel now is real. It's a low hum beneath the floorboards, a prickle on your skin that you learned to trust long ago. It's the feeling you get right before a squall hits, or right before a mutiny, the division of a recently acquired treasure. The words are so clinical, so civilized. Plunder. That's the real word for it. And you know better than anyone that dividing plunder is never civilized. It's an art form painted in greed, suspicion, and sharp steel. The door creaks open, pulling you from your reverie. Thomas Anstis steps in, and he looks as out of place in this room as a hymn book in a brothel. His linen coat is impeccably white, his boots polished to a mirror shine, but his face is a mess of frantic worry. He's a plantation owner, a man of straight lines and predictable seasons. He measures his life in harvests and profits. The chaos of your former world terrifies him. He closes the door softly behind him, the latch clicking with an unnerving finality. "Rachel," he begins, his voice a strained whisper. He wrings his hands, a gesture so unlike his usual composed self that a knot of genuine concern tightens in your stomach. "Thank you for coming. I didn't know who else to turn to." You lean back in the heavy oak chair, letting the silence stretch. You don't make it easy for him. Part of you, the part that still resents needing his help to secure your pardon, enjoys watching him squirm. "You were clear enough in your letter, Thomas. Gold. Problems." You gesture to the empty chairs around the large map table. "Where are the others? I thought this was a division." "That's the problem," he says, pacing in the small space between the door and a globe stand. He looks like a caged animal. "I can't get them in the same room, not without them being at each other's throats. I tried. I drew up a perfectly equitable distribution, Rachel, by share, by rank, with bonuses for specific actions during the acquisition. It was flawless. A perfect ledger." You can't help a small, tired smile. A perfect ledger for a crew of imperfect men. Pirates don't care for ledgers, Thomas. They care for what feels fair. And what feels fair is usually whatever they can grab first. Quote, "But this was their one chance," he says, his voice rising in frustration. He stops pacing and leans over the table, his manicured hands flat on a chart of the trade winds. "To take this gold, invest it, become legitimate. Like you, like me. But they're slipping back. I see it in their eyes. The old grudges, the petty jealousies, it's all bubbling up. Blackheart Bill claims his share is light because his pistol jammed during the fight. One-Eyed Jack is convinced someone shaved a few coins from his pouch. He sighs, a deep, defeated sound. They're sharpening their knives, Rachel. I can hear them at night from my study. That dreadful shink, shink, shink of steel on a whetstone. They're going to kill each other over this, and the authorities will descend on all of us. Your pardon won't be worth the parchment it's printed on if my plantation becomes the site of a pirate massacre. Quote, you stare at him, at the genuine fear in his eyes. He is a perfectionist, but he isn't heartless. He's your blood, and he took a great risk for you. Now he's in over his head, caught in the undertow of a world he doesn't understand. He needs you. Not the pardoned lady learning needlepoint, but the pirate captain who could quell a mutiny with a glare. What do you want from me, Thomas? You ask, your voice softer now. He looks relieved, seeing an opening. Mediate, talk to them. You know the code. The real code, not the nonsense they spout. You know the traditions, the superstitions. You speak their language. They respected you. Feared you, even. He hesitates for a moment, then adds, most of them anyway. Quote, you raise an eyebrow. Most of them? Quote, he waves a dismissive hand, but his eyes flicker with something more. It's nothing. It's just, they all posture and shout and make threats. But there's one man who is causing the most trouble by causing none at all. Quote, a cold finger of premonition traces its way down your spine. Who? The cook, Thomas says, lowering his voice again. Tom Morgan. The name hangs in the air, thick and heavy as gunsmoke. Tom Morgan. Shy, polite Tom. The man who would apologize to a fish before he scaled it. You remember him as a shadow in the galley, always humming a quiet tune, always avoiding eye contact. He was the least pirate-like pirate you had ever known. Morgan? You ask, incredulous. He wouldn't say boo to a goose. What trouble could he possibly be? That's just it, Thomas insists, leaning closer, his voice conspiratorial. While the others are brawling and screaming, he just sits and polishes his share of the coins, one by one. He smiles at everyone. A polite, empty little smile. He says nothing, and it's unnerving them all. They think he's plotting. They think his silence is a judgment. He is the calm at the center of the storm, and it's making the wind howl even louder. Bill swears Morgan poisoned his grog last week. Jack thinks he's using kitchen witchcraft to curse the gold. He's become a boogeyman in his own galley. You process this. The shy cook, the polite phantom, now the focus of everyone's paranoia. In a world of loud threats and drawn steel, a quiet man can be the most terrifying thing of all. He is the opposite of everything they are, and so he is the opposite of you. You built your reputation on spontaneous, decisive action. On a presence that filled a room. Tom Morgan's power, it seems, comes from his absence of it. You stand up and walk to the window, pushing open the heavy wooden shutters. The salty night air floods the room, cool and clean. Below, the lights of the plantation grounds are scattered like fallen stars. It's a peaceful life, a safe life, everything you thought you wanted. But Thomas is right. That peace is balanced on the edge of a knife. Those men, your former crew, are a part of you whether you like it or not. You left them, but you never truly escaped them. Their fate is tied to yours. And your caring nature, the one you always tried to hide beneath layers of leather and bravado, won't let you leave them to slaughter each other. All right, Thomas, you say, turning back to face him. The candle flame flickers, casting your shadow long and imposing against the maps of a world you once ruled. I'll do it, but not your way. Not with ledgers and polite conversation. You pick up a heavy brass compass from the table, its weight familiar and comforting in your palm. We'll do this the old way. We'll divide the plunder according to the code. The real code. Gather every last man and every last coin. We meet here. At dawn. Thomas nods, his relief so profound it seems to drain the last of the frantic energy from him, leaving him looking merely exhausted. He leaves you to the silence and the shadows, the weight of your promise settling onto your shoulders like a familiar cloak. Sleep offers no escape, only fragmented dreams of crashing waves and the glint of gold in dark water. When dawn finally breaks, it bleeds through the shutters in thin gray lines, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. You don't need a looking glass to know the reflection that would meet you. Your eyes, weary but sharp, your posture straight and unyielding. The pardoned lady is gone. Captain Wall is back. The men file in one by one, their movements hesitant, shuffling. They are a pack of wolves forced into a pen, smelling blood and weakness. They avoid each other's eyes, each man staking out a small territory around the grand table. There's one-eyed Jack, his scarred eyelid permanently sealed, his good eye darting about with twitchy paranoia. Blackheart Bill, a mountain of a man with knuckles like gnarled oak, leans against the wall, ostentatiously cleaning his fingernails with the tip of his knife. They carry the stink of stale rum and suspicion. They look at you, and you see the flicker of memory in their eyes. The respect they once held for you, now curdled with the resentment of men who feel they've been abandoned. They followed you through hell, and you left them for a life of soft linen and tea with your cousin. When they are all assembled, a muttering, dangerous collection of your past, you see him. Tom Morgan slips in last, a ghost in the doorway. He closes the heavy door with a soft click that cuts through the tension like a gunshot. He is, as you remember, slight of build, with a stoop to his shoulders and hair the color of wet sand. He finds an empty stool in the corner, away from the others, and sits. He pulls a single gold doubloon from his pocket and begins to polish it with a scrap of cloth from his sleeve. His movements methodical, serene. He meets no one's gaze. He is a still pond in a room of churning rapids, and you feel the others' unease coalesce and point toward him like a compass needle finding north. You let the silence hang, letting it press down on them, forcing them to confront the small, stuffy reality of their conflict. Then you slam the brass compass flat onto the table. The sound is like a cannon shot, sharp and final. Every eye jumps to you. This treasure, you begin, your voice low but carrying to every corner of the room, is drenched in more than seawater. It's drenched in our sweat and our blood. And some of you seem to have forgotten that. You look from face to face, your gaze lingering on Bill's knife, on Jack's twitching eye. You bicker over shavings and splinters, forgetting the whole damned log we hauled out of the fire. So let me remind you. You lean forward, your hands braced on the map of the Caribbean. You tap a spot off the coast of Florida, the Santa Elena. A Spanish galleon running low and heavy with the Crown's payroll. 24 cannons. A crew of 100 hardened soldiers. We were 50 men in a ship built for speed, not a brawl. Attacking her head-on would have been suicide. And we all would have died, rich in courage and poor in everything else. Quote, a few of the men nod, the memory pulling them back. We waited for the fog, you continue, your voice dropping, becoming the conspiratorial whisper of a captain laying a plan. For 3 days we shadowed her, just over the horizon, living on hardtack and stale water, listening to the lookout's calls. Then it came, a blanket of gray rolling in off the sea, thick as wool. We sailed right into its gut. You look at Blackheart Bill. We muffled the oars, didn't we, Bill? Every man holding his breath, the only sound the groan of the timbers and the water lapping against the hull. We crept up on her port side, a ghost ship emerging from the mist. You can see it in their faces. The thrill is returning, overriding the greed. She never knew what hit her. One moment, her lookouts were staring into a wall of gray. The next, our grappling hooks were biting into her rails and 50 devils were screaming over her side. The room is silent now, save for your voice and the faint, rhythmic shift of Tom Morgan's cloth on his coin. It was chaos. A butcher's bill paid in steel. I remember you, Jack, you say, pointing a finger at him. First, over the rail. Took down 2 guards before your boots even hit their deck. Jack puffs out his chest, a flicker of pride in his good eye. And you went straight for the captain's cabin, just as planned, to secure the officers and their charts. You pause, letting the implication hang in the air. You were in there a good minute before the rest of us. Plenty of time to see what personal chests and pouches the captain kept for himself. Jack's pride vanishes, replaced by a defensive scowl. He opens his mouth to protest, but you cut him off. And Bill, I remember you on the main deck, back to back with young Ned, holding off a half-dozen soldiers. Bill's scowl softens. You raised your pistol, aimed for their leader. You trail off, your eyes hard, and all we heard was a click. A misfire. Young Ned took a blade in the shoulder because your powder was damp, because you were too lazy or too drunk the night before to see to your weapon. The big man flinches as if struck, his face flushing with shame. He has no retort. He knows it's the truth. The memory is seared into all of them. We fought them deck by deck, They were soldiers, but we were cornered rats, and we were hungrier. We drove them back, a bloody wave of desperation. But they were rallying. Their captain was a lion, roaring orders, forming a line near the main mast. They would have cut us to pieces in a straight fight. We were about to be pushed back into the sea. Quote, your eyes drift to the corner, and that's when the screams started from below. Panic. The Spaniards' lines broke as they heard it. The shouts of fuego, agua, fire and water. They thought we had scuttled them, that the ship was sinking and ablaze. Their captain's orders were lost in the pandemonium. They threw down their arms and ran to save themselves. It was that panic, that one moment of chaos, that won us the day and the gold in this chest. Quote, you looked directly at Tom Morgan. They never found a fire. All they found was a flooded galley, the water barrels overturned, and the cook's stores thick with smoke from a smoldering mix of sulfur and lard Tom had lit in a wet bucket. A cook's trick. It wasn't a cannon shot or a sword thrust that broke them. It was a phantom fire. It was a clever, quiet bit of work from a man no one was watching. For the first time, Tom Morgan stops polishing his coin. He looks up, not at you, but around at the faces of the other men. A current passes through the room. They are seeing him, truly seeing him for the first time, not as the shy galley cook, but as the man whose cunning saved their lives. And you see it too in that brief, unguarded moment. You see the burning resentment in his pale eyes. The deep, acidic anger of a man who knows his contribution, the linchpin of the entire victory, was dismissed as a cook's duty, worth one share, the same as the rawest deckhand who barely managed not to fall overboard. He believed he deserved more. Not a bonus. He believed he deserved a captain's share. His gaze finally meets yours. The anger vanishes from his eyes, replaced by that polite, unnerving placidity. He gives a small, almost imperceptible nod, as if acknowledging your telling of the tale. And then he smiles. It's a tiny, razor-thin smile that doesn't reach his eyes. It's not a smile of gratitude. It's a smile of challenge. In that moment, you understand. Thomas was wrong. Tom Morgan isn't the calm at the center of the storm. He is the storm. He has been patiently, quietly, turning the men against each other, feeding their paranoia with his silence, letting their own greed and distrust do the work for him. He knows the code better than any of them. He knows it's a fragile thing, easily broken by suspicion. While they sharpen their knives for each other, he is positioning himself to inherit the whole bloody prize when they are done. He has been playing a longer, smarter game. You, with your grand gestures and your reputation, came here to put out a fire. But you realize now you've just stumbled into a meticulously laid powder trail, and Tom Morgan is standing at the other end holding a lit match in his quiet, steady hand. The fight for this treasure won't be won with a sword. It will be a battle of wits, a quiet war waged in whispers and shadows. And you just met your opposite, your antagonist, not in a hulking brute, but in a shy, polite cook, with a grievance as deep and as cold as the sea itself. The smile is the key, not the anger you saw flash in his eyes a moment before. That was a glimpse behind the curtain, a private, burning truth. This smile is for the room. It's a weapon, and you've just witnessed him sheathe it. It says, yes, tell them what I did. Remind them of my value. It only makes my silence more powerful. You see his strategy laid bare. A chart of deception as clear as any on these walls. He isn't trying to seize the gold. He's waiting for the others to kill each other for it, and for you to fail to stop them. Then he, the quiet, polite, blameless cook, will be the only one left to pick up the pieces. You push the thought aside. You can't fight him on his terms in the shadows. You have to drag this all into the light. Your light. The code, you say, your voice cutting through the uneasy quiet. We're not here to argue feelings. We're here to honor the articles we all signed. The law we made for ourselves when the laws of kings and governors failed us. Quote, you let your gaze sweep over them, these men who had chosen a short, free life over a long one in chains. You think your governors are fair? You think a Royal Navy captain distributes prize money without skimming the top, the bottom, and the middle for himself and his powdered wig friends? They have laws written on 1,000 pages of parchment designed to confuse and cheat you. Our law was written on one page. And every man here either signed his name or made his mark on it. It was a promise, not just to your captain, but to each other. A promise that we were a commonwealth, a society of our own making, where a man's worth was measured by his actions, and his reward was guaranteed. Quote, you tap the table. So we'll start there. The shares: 1 share for every man who drew breath and a blade. A share and a quarter for the petty officers, the boatswain and the gunner. A share and a half for the quartermaster, who speaks for the crew. And 2 shares for the captain, who bears the risk for all. A low grumble comes from Blackheart Bill. Easy for you to say, you're not getting a share at all. I'm not, you agree, your voice cold as iron. My payment is ensuring this doesn't end with all of you swinging from a gibbet on your cousin's lawn. Now, the second article. Compensation. You look directly at One-Eyed Jack. The law of the sea we created was more honest than any on land. It had provisions: 100 pieces of 8 for the loss of a right arm, 80 for the left, 50 pieces for a lost eye. Jack's good eye widened slightly. He hadn't forgotten, but he hadn't expected you to bring it up so plainly. That is a debt owed by the company, paid out before the shares are divided. It is a recognition of sacrifice. Quote, you turn your attention to the rest of them. And bonuses. The first man to spot a prize. A bonus. The first man to board her. A bonus. These are rewards for courage, for taking the risks that benefit us all. You pause, letting the words sink in. And punishments. For the man who deserts his post in battle. For the man who keeps a secret plunder for himself. You let your eyes drift from Jack back to Bill. And for the man who brings a woman aboard disguised. For the man who strikes another aboard ship. For the man who cheats his fellows at cards or dice. The punishment for all these is the same: marooning. Or death. Because there is no greater crime on a ship than to break the trust of your brothers. Quote, the room is still. You have reminded them not of a loose set of guidelines, but of a binding, brutal contract. A system they believed in, fought for, and killed for. Thomas, you say, your voice now sharp with command. Open the chest. You will be our quartermaster for today. Count every coin, every gem. We will make 3 piles. The first is for compensation debts. The second is for bonuses earned. What is left will be the general plunder, and from that we will divide the shares. Exactly as the articles demand. Thomas, looking immensely relieved to have a clear task, fumbles with the keys and lifts the heavy lid of the sea chest. A collective gasp, soft and reverent, fills the room. Gold. It seems to spill light into the dusty air. A pirate's sun rising in the dark room. Doubloons, pieces of 8, florins, golden louis d'or, a tangle of pearl necklaces, and the raw fire of uncut rubies. It's a king's ransom, and it belongs to them. For a moment, greed is replaced by awe. Then the counting begins. Thomas, with trembling hands, starts separating coins. The silence is broken only by the clink-clink-clink of gold on the oak table. You watch the men. Their awe is fading, replaced by a hungry, calculating tension. Each clink of a coin is a beat in a drum, summoning their demons. Hold, One-Eyed Jack says, his voice a low growl. Thomas freezes. The bonus. For being first man over the rail of the Santa Elena. A pistol and 50 pieces of 8, the articles say. That is correct, Jack, you say evenly. Aye, it is. But what 50 pieces? He points a trembling, grimy finger at the growing pile. Those Spanish pieces are smaller, the French louis are heavier. Am I to have my bravery rewarded with the runts of the litter, while another man's share is fat with French gold? The code says 50 pieces. It doesn't say which 50. Before you can answer, Blackheart Bill shoves himself off the wall. And what of my powder? Ned took a cut to the arm because my pistol failed. But the powder was from the ship's stores. Quartermaster's fault, not mine. I want my full share. I'll not be docked for faulty equipment. Quote, you should have checked your weapon, Bill. You know the rule. A smaller man named Finn mutters from the back. Bill whirls on him. And you, Finn? I saw you slip that silver locket into your boot as we were clearing the cabins. The code says all plunder is common plunder. Liar, Finn shrieks, his hand flying to the hilt of his dagger. It was my mother's. I've always had it. The room erupts. The fragile dam of order you built bursts, and a flood of accusations pours forth. A man claims he deserves a bonus for fighting with a broken cutlass. Another argues his 3 days on lookout in the fog were worth more than a single share. The arguments are a tangled mess of half-truths and pure invention, each man twisting the code to fit his own narrative of greed and entitlement. They are no longer a crew. They are a snarling pack of dogs fighting over a single bone. Thomas looks at you, his face pale with terror. A perfect ledger on the table now, just a meaningless sheet of paper. And through it all, Tom Morgan sits in his corner. He has put his coin away. He just watches, his face a mask of polite concern. As the shouting between Bill and Finn reaches a fever pitch, Morgan speaks, his voice just loud enough to be heard over the din. "A shame," he says softly, shaking his head. "Such a brave fight, too." Every man in the room, desperate for any interruption, turns to look at him. He looks at Finn with gentle eyes. "That locket, it is a beautiful piece. Did your mother truly give it to you?" Quote, "Aye," Finn says defensively. Morgan nods slowly. "A precious thing. It would be a tragedy if, in the heat of argument, someone were to accuse you unfairly and damage your honor. Just as it would be a tragedy if such a precious thing were found to be, say, Spanish silver, with the royal crest scratched off the back." Quote, Finn's face goes white. Bill lets out a triumphant roar. "See, he knows! The cook knows!" Quote. Morgan shrinks back as if frightened by the outburst. "I know nothing," he says quietly. "I only mend the pots and stir the stew. I was just saying it would be a shame." Quote, "It's a masterstroke of poison." With one polite, sympathetic comment, he has confirmed Bill's accusation without making one himself, turning the full force of the crew's suspicion onto Finn. He has made himself appear to be a neutral, concerned party, while simultaneously fanning the flames. You see the men's eyes narrow, their hands tightening on their weapons. The debate over shares and bonuses is forgotten, replaced by a more fundamental pirate crime: cheating your own. You slam your palm down on the table, the sound echoing the compass from before, but this time it's laced with fury. "Enough!" you roar, your voice resonating with the authority of a captain on her quarterdeck. You sound like fishwives haggling in a market, not the men who took the Santa Elena. You dishonor yourselves. You dishonor the code. They fall silent, startled by your ferocity. But the damage is done. The air is thick with poison, the seeds of distrust Morgan planted now taking root in every man's heart. The division has failed. The code, which you presented as their source of strength and justice, has been twisted by their own greed into a weapon against each other. And with a cold certainty that settles deep in your bones, this was only the first skirmish in a war Tom Morgan fully intends to win. He will not fight you with a sword. He will make your own crew your executioners. The echo of your own voice dies, leaving a void more profound than the previous quiet. The men are statues of grimy resentment, their glares fixed on you. Finn is still pale, Bill's knuckles are white on his knife hilt, but the momentum of their rage is broken, spent against the wall of your authority. You see the conflict in their eyes, the chafing at being commanded by a woman they once followed, now a pardoned outsider, mixed with the grudging, instinctual memory of obeying Captain Wall. It is in that flicker of hesitation that you find your opening. You don't look at Tom Morgan. To acknowledge him now is to play his game. Instead, you turn your full attention to Finn, the weakest link, the one Morgan chose as his first target. "Your mother's locket, Finn?" you ask, your voice deceptively calm. "Aye, Captain Rachel," he stammers, the old title slipping out. The name, Captain, hangs in the air. It's a ghost, but a powerful one. You let it linger. Your memory, a curse and a tool in equal measure, pulls you back, not to the Santa Elena, but further. To a miserable, rain-soaked raid on a fat merchantman out of Port Royal a year before that. The details surface, unbidden and sharp as broken glass. The deck is slick with rain and blood. The fight was short, ugly. Now comes the plunder, the crew tearing through crates of cotton and spice. You stand on the quarterdeck, watching them, when you see Blackheart Bill corner Finn near the forecastle. Bill is immense, a bear of a man, and Finn is a slip of a lad, barely old enough to grow a proper beard. Bill has Finn's hand in a grip of iron twisting his arm. "What's this, then?" Bill's voice is a low rumble. "A pretty little bauble? Too fine for the common chest, is it?" He wrenches the silver locket from Finn's grasp. Finn cries out, a mix of pain and desperation. "It's not, Bill. A trinket. Worthless." Quote, "Worthless things don't get hidden, boy," Bill grunts, his thumb working at the clasp. You start down the ladder, your patience worn thin by the rain and the pathetic hull. Before you reach the main deck, you see Finn do something desperate. He kicks a coil of rope into Bill's path, and as the big man stumbles, Finn snatches the locket back and shoves it deep into his boot, his eyes wild with terror. The memory dissolves, leaving the dusty air of the map room in its wake. You look from Finn's terrified face to Bill's smug, accusatory scowl. "I remember that locket, Finn," you say softly, "and I remember you hiding it in your boot, after you snatched it back from Bill, who was trying to take it from you on the deck of the Good Endeavor." Quote, Bill's smugness evaporates. A muttering ripples through the men. They remember the Good Endeavor. They remember Bill's habit of bullying the younger crew for their personal trifles. You press the advantage. "The code protects common plunder, Bill," you say, your voice hardening as you turn to him. "It doesn't give you the right to shake down your own crewmates for personal keepsakes." You accused Finn of breaking the code because you hold a grudge that he outsmarted you. You used a lie to try and claim something that was never yours. You let the accusation hang in the air, a stink worse than bilge water. Bill looks down, his face a thunderous red, unable to meet anyone's eye. You have not defended Finn. You have exposed Bill. The dynamic shifts. It's no longer about a potential thief, it's about a confirmed bully. Now, you turn to the next loose thread. Jack. One-eyed Jack flinches, his good eye fixing on you with wary defiance. You were the first man in the captain's cabin. You claim your 50 pieces for your eye, and you deserve them. A debt of blood. But you also had a duty. To secure the officers and the ship's documents. Another memory surfaces. This one hazy at the edges, clouded by the smoke and chaos of the battle. You burst into the captain's cabin of the Santa Elena, pistol smoking. 2 Spanish officers lie dead on the floor. Jack is there, his cutlass dripping, breathing heavily. His face is a bloody mask, his left eye a ruined mess. But you see something else. Just before you entered, you saw him shove a small, flat, oilskin-wrapped packet into his coat. He was standing over the captain's desk, where a large navigational chart was unrolled, held down by a heavy inkwell and a silver compass. The packet had been lying right next to it. At the time, in the heat of the moment, you registered it only as part of the scramble for loot. Now, in the quiet of this room, with the scent of paranoia thick around you, the memory sharpens into focus. It wasn't a pouch of coins or a jewel, it was flat. Rectangular, like a document, like a map. "I remember that cabin, Jack," you say, your voice low and dangerous. "The Spanish captain was dead when I arrived. You were already there. There was a chart on his desk. And something else. An oilskin packet you hid in your coat." "Lies!" Jack spits, but there's a tremor in his voice. Sweat beads on his brow. "I was securing the room, fighting for my life. My eye." "Your eye was lost in the fight, and for that you will be paid," you say, cutting him off. "But what was in the packet, Jack? What secret plunder did you claim for yourself, against the code?" Quote, the room is deathly quiet now. The clinking of coins has long since stopped. Thomas looks on, horrified. The other men are no longer looking at Finn or Bill. They are all staring at Jack, their greed and suspicion finding a new, more tantalizing target. A secret plunder. Something one man thought was valuable enough to hide from them all. "It was nothing," Jack insists, his one eye darting around the room, looking for an ally and finding none. "Personal letters. Spanish bilge." "Then you won't mind producing them," you challenge. "Or did you throw this bilge overboard?" Jack's face tells the story. He is trapped, and in his panic you see the truth. It wasn't just about a hidden bonus. It was something more. Your eyes are drawn to the chart on the table before you. Not the Spanish captain's, but Thomas's own copy, used for this very meeting. It shows the route of the Santa Elena. You stare at the black ink line tracing her path from Havana, arcing north past the Florida Keys. It was a standard payroll run, that's what the intel had said. That's what you had all believed. But why would a simple payroll galleon have a captain with private, sealed documents? Your mind races, connecting dots that had been scattered for months. The unusual number of veteran soldiers aboard. The captain, a man known for deep water exploration, not for guarding money. The route itself, it was standard, but it passed perilously close to the known wreck sites of the 1715 treasure fleet. And now, Jack's hidden packet. Your blood runs cold. A shocking, terrible thought crystallizes in your mind. Thomas, you say, your voice a strained whisper. The manifest. The one we captured from their prize master. What was the secondary cargo? Thomas fumbles through a stack of papers on a side table. I have it here. Mostly official correspondence. Supplies. Oh, and this. I thought it was an error. One crate. Historical documents and charts. Property of the Royal Archives, Seville. Quote, it all clicks into place, a seismic shift in understanding that rocks you to your core. You look at the greedy, desperate faces around you, and you finally understand the true, hidden stakes of their arguments. It was a lie? You breathe, the words barely audible. The men lean in. The entire thing. The payroll, it was a cover. You look up, your gaze sweeping over them, finally landing on Jack's terrified face. The Santa Elena wasn't just carrying gold. She was on a recovery mission. The Spanish crown has been trying for years to pinpoint the exact location of the Capitana, the flagship of the Silver Fleet that went down in the hurricane of 28. A ship carrying enough silver to make this chest look like a beggar's cup. A collective intake of breath. The gold on the table seems to dim, to shrink in importance. Those historical documents, you continue, your mind working furiously. They were the research, the accounts of survivors, the old maps, and the captain of the Santa Elena. He had found it. He had pieced it all together. The final chart, the key to the wreck, that's what was in the oilskin packet. Wasn't it, Jack? Jack stumbles back, his face ashen. He doesn't need to confess. The truth is written all over him. He found the map to a treasure 100 times greater than the one they were fighting over, and he kept it for himself. The petty arguments over coin sizes and faulty pistols were a smokescreen for his own grand betrayal. The silence that follows is absolute, heavy, and murderous. The men are no longer looking at Jack with suspicion. They are looking at him with the cold, dead-eyed appraisal of sharks that have scented blood. Blackheart Bill takes a slow, deliberate step away from the wall, his knife held loosely, expertly in his hand. And then you look into the corner. At Tom Morgan. He is no longer watching the proceedings with polite concern. He is watching you. The razor-thin smile is back, but this time it reaches his eyes. And what you see in them is not surprise. It's not the shock of revelation. It is the pure, unadulterated triumph of a master manipulator, whose plan has just come to fruition in a way more perfect than he could have ever hoped. He didn't need to expose Jack. He knew you would. He knew your mind, your obsession with the truth, your captain's instinct. He laid the trail of breadcrumbs, the subtle poisoning of Finn, the fueling of Bill's anger, knowing you would follow it, that you would tear apart their fragile alliance in your quest for order. You thought you were putting out a fire, but you were just the tool he used to detonate the powder keg. The weight of the past, of all their secret sins and betrayals, has crashed down upon this room. But it's the future, a future shimmering with lost Spanish silver that is about to get them all killed. And Tom Morgan, the polite, shy cook, is the only one who seems ready for it. The air in the map room is no longer breathable. It's a solid thing, a block of ice formed from shock and murderous intent. Every man is a predator, and one-eyed Jack is the wounded prey, cornered and bleeding out his last hopes. Blackheart Bill's knuckles are bone white where he grips his knife. His face is a mask of brutal calculation. He is no longer seeing Jack, his old crewmate. He's seeing a door to unimaginable wealth, and Jack is the flimsy lock he is about to break. The gold on the table is forgotten, a pile of dull metal trinkets. The real treasure is in Phantom, a ghost of a galleon, and its map is hidden in the coat of a dead man walking. You move before the first drop of blood can be shed, not with a shout, not with a drawn weapon, but with a single clear thought spoken into the suffocating silence. Kill him, you say, your voice calm and even, and the map dies with him. Bill freezes, his forward motion arrested. The other men who had been tensing to join the fray pause. Your words are not a plea for mercy. They are a statement of cold, hard fact. You are speaking their language. Not the language of the code, but the more fundamental language of profit and loss. He could have told one of us, Bill snarls, his eyes still locked on Jack. He could have confided in a brother. Quote, would you have, Bill, you counter, your gaze as sharp as a blade. If you found the path to a king's fortune, would you have whispered it in Finn's ear? Or would you have kept it close, waiting for the right moment. He betrayed the code, yes, but his greed is the same greed that beats in every heart in this room, yours included. Quote, "You let that sink in, a poison that works as an antidote. By acknowledging their shared sin, you diffuse the righteousness of their anger. They are not executioners serving justice. They are simply jealous rivals. You turn your attention to the trembling Jack. Give it to me, Jack." He clutches his coat, his one good eye wide with terror. "He'll kill me, Rachel. The moment it's out of my hands, I'm a dead man." "He'll kill you if you keep it," you reply, your voice unyielding. "Right now, it's the only thing keeping you alive, but in another minute, it's going to be the reason for your autopsy. Your only chance is to change the terms of the debate. Give it to me. I'm the only one in this room who won't kill you for it." Quote, "It's a gamble. You're asking them all to trust you, the pardoned outsider. But you are also offering Jack the only viable path out of a locked room with a dozen armed and furious men." He hesitates, his eye darting from your face to Bill's, then to the other hard-set glares around the table. Slowly, with a hand that shakes uncontrollably, he reaches into his coat and pulls out the flat, oilskin-wrapped packet. It looks insignificant, stained with seawater and grime. He holds it out to you like a penitent offering a relic. You take it, the packet surprisingly light in your hand. The fate of every man here, and a fortune beyond their wildest dreams, rests in this flimsy package. You don't open it. You hold it up for all to see. "This changes everything," you announce. "The articles we signed for the Santa Elena venture are now concluded. This," you tap the packet, "is a new venture, and new ventures demand new articles." You walk to the head of the table, placing the packet squarely in the center, a new sun for this grim solar system of greedy men. Jack has broken the code. The punishment is death or marooning. But the code also allows for dispensation. For a crime this large, the crew must decide the punishment. You look around the room. "I will propose the terms." Jack forfeits everything from the Santa Elena. His share, his bonus, his compensation for his eye, it all goes back into the common pot, to be divided amongst the rest of you. His life is spared. His payment, his only payment, will be a single share of the treasure from the Capitana. If, and only if, we find it. A murmur of consideration ripples through the room. It's a harsh sentence, but a clever one. It is justice, but it is also practical. It satisfies their need for retribution while keeping their guide alive. Bill grunts, a sound of reluctant agreement. Stripping Jack of his gold and his pride is almost as good as slitting his throat. And then, a quiet voice from the corner cuts through the fragile consensus. "A most equitable solution, Captain Wall," Tom Morgan says, his voice full of polite admiration. He has risen from his stool and stepped closer to the table, his hands clasped behind his back. He looks like a humble parishioner, admiring a stained-glass window. It shows great wisdom. Quote, "You feel a chill crawl up your spine. This is it, the counter-move. However," he continues, his expression one of thoughtful concern, "I am but a simple cook, and perhaps I misunderstand. But what if there is no map in that packet? What if it is merely blank parchment, a desperate bluff by a man caught stealing? If that is the case, we would have let a traitor go not only unpunished, but rewarded with his life for his lie." He lets the question hang in the air, a drop of acid dissolving the foundation of your proposal. The men's expressions shift. Doubt, ugly and immediate, flickers in their eyes. They look from the packet to Jack, whose face has gone chalk white. He was not prepared for this. Before you can respond, Morgan turns his placid gaze upon you. "And this new venture, it is a grand undertaking. The articles for the Santa Elena were for a crew of 50 men on a swift brigantine. This will be different. A new company, a new agreement. A man's worth should be measured by his value to the new venture, should it not? Some men are fighters, some are sailors, some are mediators." He smiles his thin, razor-wire smile. "What share does a mediator, who is not part of the crew, receive for her services?" Quote, there it is, the stiletto slipped politely between your ribs. With two simple, reasonable-sounding questions, he has turned them against Jack and begun the process of surgically cutting you out of the equation. He has redefined the company, making you an outsider again, a consultant to be paid a fee, not a leader to be followed. Blackheart Bill seizes on the doubt Morgan has sown. "The cook is right!" he bellows, slamming his fist on the table, making the coins jump. "We're not going on a promise. I want to see this map. How do we know he's not leading us on a chase across the whole damned ocean? Quote, "If you see the map, what's to stop you from killing me and taking it?" Jack shrieks back, his terror giving way to a desperate, cornered rat fury. "I don't trust you to read it right." Bill roars, pointing a thick finger at Jack. "You'd lead us to a sandbar and slip away in the night. I'll be the keeper of that chart. I'll see us to this treasure." "Never!" Jack screams. "It's mine! My discovery!" Quote, "You stole it! It belongs to the company!" Finn shouts, finding his voice. "What company?" another man demands. "The one he betrayed?" The room explodes. It's not a brawl of fists and blades, not yet, but a chaotic shouting match of overlapping accusations and demands. All the work you did to create a semblance of order is gone, shredded in an instant. Factions begin to form in the chaos, men glaring at each other, their hands inching towards their weapons. Thomas has backed himself into a corner, his face a portrait of sheer panic. This is what Morgan wanted. Not a simple murder, but a complete societal collapse. A war of all against all. And in that moment of absolute chaos, you see your path. It is terrifying. It is reckless. It is the only way. You don't shout. You don't draw a weapon. You simply reach out and take the oilskin packet from the center of the table. Every eye follows your movement. You walk away from the table, away from the snarling men, towards the single candle burning on a small writing desk near the window. The room falls silent, the echoes of their rage dying in their throats. They watch you, confused. You hold the packet over the dancing flame, close enough for the oilskin to feel the heat, close enough for the edges to begin to curl. "This is what you are fighting for," you say, your voice terrifyingly quiet. "A dream of silver. And you're so blinded by it, you're about to slit each other's throats and burn my cousin's plantation to the ground before you've even seen a single piece of it." Quote, you lower the packet a fraction of an inch. The smell of hot wax and old canvas fills the air. Bill takes an involuntary step forward. "Rachel, what are you doing?" "I'm making a decision," you say, your eyes fixed on the flame, because you all seem to have forgotten how. You have two choices. Choice one, you continue screaming and threatening. You tear each other apart over who will hold the map, who gets what share, who to trust. And while you do, I will burn this packet to ash. The dream will be gone. You will be left with nothing but the gold on that table and the fresh blood on your hands. I imagine the authorities will be very interested in that. You let the silence stretch, thick and heavy. Choice two, you continue, your voice low and intense. We form a new company. Right here. Right now. The articles are simple. Jack gets one share, and only if we succeed. Every other man here gets 2 shares. Double what you're used to. A fortune worthy of the risk. Quote, you can see the greed flickering in their eyes, warring with their suspicion. I will be the quartermaster of this company, you state, not proposing but declaring. That means I hold the map. I will navigate. I will mete out the discipline and the shares according to the articles we agree on today. I will take no share for myself. My payment is seeing this done without a massacre. You will follow my command as you would a captain's. We will work together, as a crew. We will find this treasure, and we will all walk away richer than a dozen kings. Quote, you look up from the flame and meet their gazes, one by one. Your eyes are chips of ice. Those are the only 2 choices on the table. A war over nothing or a fortune under my command. Decide, now. The packet is now so close to the flame that a wisp of dark smoke begins to curl from a corner. The men are paralyzed, caught between their ingrained distrust and the monumental, unbelievable prospect you've laid before them. You have taken their greed, their fear, their ambition, and their paranoia, and you have forged it all into a weapon pointed directly at their heads. You turn your head and look, for the first time since this began, directly at Tom Morgan. The polite mask is gone. The thin smile is gone. For a fleeting instant, you see naked, furious disbelief on his face. He is staring at you, at the burning candle, at the map he had intended to use to destroy them all, now being used as the instrument of their unification. You have taken his intricate, patient plan and smashed it to pieces with a single, spontaneous, insane act of piracy. He had planned to be the storm. You have become the hurricane. The choice is no longer his to manipulate. It is theirs to make. under the threat of your fire. The seconds stretch into an eternity, each one measured by the slow, agonizing curl of the oilskin. The smell of hot wax is the smell of a future turning to smoke. The men are frozen, their faces a gallery of shock, greed, and dawning comprehension. You see it most clearly in Blackheart Bill. His rage has been extinguished by a cold dose of reality. He's no longer looking at Jack or the gold. He's looking at you, and for the first time, he isn't seeing a pardoned lady or an interfering cousin. He's seeing the captain who led them into a fog bank and delivered a Spanish galleon, the woman who could stare down a mutiny without blinking. He's seeing a pirate. It is Bill who breaks the silence. His voice is a low rumble, the sound of rocks grinding together. "You'd do it," he says. It's not a question. It's a statement of fact, filled with a grudging, profound respect. You'd burn a king's ransom just to prove a point. I'd burn a kingdom to stop my own from tearing themselves apart over scraps, you reply, your voice level, your hand steady over the flame. The wisp of smoke thickens slightly. Bill looks from you to the map, then to the terrified face of Jack, and finally to the other men. He sees the chaos you see, the pointless, self-destructive spiral. He is a brute, but he is a practical brute. He understands survival. He lets out a harsh, barking laugh that is utterly devoid of humor. "Damn my eyes," he says, shaking his head. He takes a step back from the table, a gesture of concession. Double shares with you as quartermaster, and you take none for yourself. He looks you dead in the eye. "It's the maddest damned proposal I've ever heard, and the fairest." He turns to the rest of the crew, his voice booming through the map room. "I'm in. I'll sail with Captain Wall's ghost ship. It's a better gamble than cutting each other's gizzards out for a chest that's cursed us from the start." Quote, his decision lands like a cannonball, shattering the standoff. A wave of relief, so potent it's almost visible, washes through the room. One by one, the hard glares soften. The hands move away from daggers and pistols. Finn, who looks like he's aged a decade in the last hour, lets out a shaky breath and nods vigorously. Bill's right. I'm with Rachel. The support is a cascade. "Better to chase a ghost than become one," another man mutters, earning a few grim chuckles. "Double shares," another whispers, the words tasting sweet on his tongue. "My wife would finally believe I haven't been fishing all these years." Quote, you pull the packet away from the flame, the immediate threat withdrawn. The room breathes again. You look at Jack, who is staring at Bill with utter disbelief. His staunchest adversary, the man who was moments from gutting him, is now his unlikely guarantor. Jack slowly straightens up, the terror in his eye being replaced by a complex brew of relief and humiliation. He gives you a short, jerky nod. He has no choice but to accept his sentence. The tension, which had been a physical presence, begins to dissolve, replaced by a clumsy, unfamiliar sense of common purpose. It starts with Bill. He walks over to the main table, scoops up a handful of gold and silver coins, and strides over to Finn. He thrusts the coins at the smaller man, who flinches back instinctively. "Here," Bill grunts, not looking at him. "For the trouble I caused ye. And for the locket. A man's got a right to his keepsakes." He drops the coins into Finn's trembling hands. Finn stares at the metal, then up at the giant of a man, speechless. It isn't an apology. It's a pirate's truce, paid in silver, and it's more meaningful than 1,000 flowery words. One-eyed Jack, seeing this, clears his throat. He looks at Bill. "My thanks, Bill," he says, his voice hoarse. "Aye." "Shut your gob, Jack," Bill cuts him off, but without the earlier venom. "You're a thieving bastard who nearly got us all killed, but you're our thieving bastard. You just better hope that map is real, or the only share you'll get is a yard of rope. The threat is still there, but it has changed. It's no longer a promise of murder. It's a warning to a wayward crewmate." A few of the men laugh, a rough, cathartic sound that breaks the last of the spell. The hostility melts away into a kind of boisterous pragmatism. They are pirates, after all. Their moods shift as quickly as the wind. The argument is over. A decision has been made, and now there is a new venture, a new prize. "We'll need a proper ship," a scarred man named Graves says, rubbing his jaw. "The Sea Serpent is fast, but she's not meant for a long haul, and she's known from here to Nassau. We'll have to acquire one," you say, walking back to the table and placing the oilskin packet down with deliberate care. The men watch it, but now with reverence instead of raw avarice. Quietly. "A Spanish merchantman, maybe." Something sturdy that won't draw the eye of a Royal Navy frigate. We'll need provisions. Water. Rum. Lots of rum, another chimes in. And a chorus of agreement follows. The talk shifts from betrayal and shares to rigging, tides, and logistics. You see them becoming a crew again, before your very eyes, their rivalries submerged beneath the shared knowledge of their trade. They talk about old voyages, about storms they weathered and ports they plundered. They tell stories, not as accusations but as shared history. You listen, interjecting with a question or a command, gently guiding their renewed energy. They look to you, their faces open and expectant. You have not just given them a new target, you have given them back their identity. Only one man remains outside this new circle of camaraderie. Tom Morgan has watched the entire scene unfold, his face an unreadable mask of polite interest. Now, as the men begin to talk and laugh, he steps forward, his quiet presence reasserting itself. "It is a fine thing to see," he says, his voice soft, yet it cuts through the growing din. Brothers reunited. It warms the heart. He smiles at you, a gentle, admiring smile. "Your command is a thing of beauty, Rachel. Truly. To take such chaos and forge such purpose from it, magnificent." Quote, "His praise is like a cold slime on your skin. He is conceding this battle, but not the war. He is seamlessly pivoting, adopting a role of the loyal, admiring crewman." He turns to the others. "I am with you all, of course. My skills are humble, but I will see you all fed and your grog hot. I am with my crew." He puts a hand on Bill's arm. "A new venture, a new life for us all." Quote, Bill, caught up in the new spirit of things, claps Morgan on the shoulder hard enough to make the smaller man stumble. "Aye, Cookie, you keep the salt pork from going green, and we'll make you rich enough to buy your own damned island." Quote, Morgan smiles, a genuine-looking beam of gratitude. "I could ask for nothing more." But as he turns away, his eyes meet yours for a fraction of a second over Bill's shoulder. The politeness is gone. The smile is gone. What you see is cold, bottomless reptilian fury. It is the look of a grandmaster whose board has been flipped over, who is already calculating a new and far deadlier game. He will not challenge you openly again. He will be the perfect crewman. He will be your most ardent supporter. And he will wait for the first moment of weakness, the first mistake, and he will use the trust you have just painstakingly built to slit your throat. You have not defeated him. You have merely driven him deeper into the shadows, where he is most dangerous. You push the chilling thought away, one enemy at a time. First, you must bind this fragile alliance with more than just words and threats. "Thomas," you say, turning to your cousin, who is still huddled in the corner, looking utterly bewildered by the turn of events. He jumps as if you fired a pistol. "Your pen and paper. You're our scribe. We have new articles to draw up." Quote, For the first time all night, Thomas looks relieved. A ledger, a contract. This is a language he understands. He scurries to the writing desk, pulls out a fresh sheet of heavy parchment, and dips a quill in ink. "Ready, Rachel," he says, his voice shaky but eager. You stand at the head of the table, the undisputed center of gravity in the room. "Article 1, you declare, your voice ringing with authority. The venture is the location and recovery of the Spanish galleon known as the Capitana. All plunder from said vessel is to be considered common." You pause, looking around. Article 2, shares. 1 share for Jack, conditional on success. 2 shares for every other man who signs these articles. No other bonuses or compensation. We are all equal in this. There are nods of agreement. The simplicity and richness of the offer are potent. Article 3. I, Rachel Wall, will act as quartermaster. I will hold the map. My word on matters of navigation and discipline is law. Disobeying a direct order during the venture is punishable by death. There will be no debate on the open sea. You let the harshness of that sink in. This is not a democracy. It is a benevolent dictatorship, and their survival depends on it. Article 4, you continue. All other crimes, theft from a crewmate, desertion of post, bringing a woman aboard, striking another, will be judged by a jury of 3 men, chosen by lottery. The quartermaster will not be part of the jury. Punishment to be decided by the crew. You are giving them back their own justice system, taking yourself out of their internal squabbles. You dictate 3 more articles covering the division of plunder, the care for the wounded using common funds, and the selection of a captain for their new vessel. Thomas's quill scratches furiously across the parchment. When you are done, a comprehensive, brutal, and eminently fair contract lies on the table. It is the law of their new temporary nation. Here it is, you announce. The promise we make to each other. Step forward and make your mark. Sign your name if you can write it. Swear your oath to these words and to the men standing beside you. Quote, Blackheart Bill is the first. He strides forward, takes the offered quill from a wide-eyed Thomas, and draws a crude, thick X at the bottom of the page. He looks up at you. To the Capitana, he says, a fierce grin splitting his face. And to the quartermaster, mad enough to get us there. One by one they come forward. Graves, Finn, and all the others. They sign with shaky letters or ink-smudged marks, each man murmuring his assent. They are no longer a bickering mob. They are a company again, bound by a common goal and a shared law. When the last man has signed, you look at the document. It's a mess of crude marks and names, a testament to a desperate and unlikely pact. Finally, Tom Morgan steps forward. He takes the quill with a delicate hand and, in a script as neat and perfect as a schoolmaster's, signs his full name, Thomas Morgan. He meets your gaze, his eyes full of polite deference. My loyalty is with the crew, quartermaster, he says softly. You nod, accepting his fealty, knowing it is as false as a lead doubloon. But for now, it is enough. The alliances, however unlikely, are forged. The war in the map room is over. The war on the open sea is about to begin. The ink of Tom Morgan's signature seems darker than the others, a stain of perfect calligraphy on a page of crude, honest marks. The air in the room is thin, depleted of oxygen by the fire of your gamble and the fury of the men. Now, in the aftermath, a strange quiet descends. It is not the tense, waiting silence of before, but the exhausted calm that follows a hurricane, when you can finally step outside and see what is broken and what has, miraculously, held fast. The men who were seconds from tearing each other apart now stand in loose, uncertain groups. They look at the signed articles on the table, then at each other, as if seeing their crewmates for the first time. You let the moment settle, allowing the ink to dry and the new reality to sink into their bones. You have their loyalty for the next venture, bought with the promise of a legendary treasure, but the gold from the Santa Elena, the original sin, still lies piled on the table, a glittering monument to the greed that nearly consumed them. Leaving it unresolved would be like leaving a loaded pistol on the floor. The articles for the Capitana are signed, you say, your voice resonating in the quiet room. That is the future. Now, we settle the past. You gesture to the heap of gold. This treasure will be divided, not by the new articles, but by the old, the ones we all agreed to when we first signed on to take the Santa Elena. We will honor the contract we completed, even as we punish the man who broke it. Quote, a few of the men exchange uncertain glances. They had assumed in the heat of the moment that Jack's share would simply be thrown into the pot. Your talk of honoring the old articles introduces a complexity they hadn't anticipated. We will do this by the book, you continue, your tone leaving no room for argument. It is the only way to wash the blood off these coins. You turn to your cousin, who looks like a man saved from a sinking ship. Thomas, you are still our quartermaster for this division. Bring the chest to the center of the table. Quote, Thomas obeys, dragging the heavy chest so it sits beneath the single candle. You walk over and stand beside him. The code we lived by had a clear order of operations, you announce, pitching your voice so every man can hear. Debts are paid first. Debts of honor. Debts of blood. You look at one-eyed Jack, who flinches under your gaze. Jack lost an eye in the taking of the Santa Elena. The articles promised 50 pieces of 8 for such a loss. That is a debt owed by the company, not a bonus earned by the man. It is compensation for a part of himself he left on that deck. His crime does not erase his sacrifice. A murmur runs through the room. Blackheart Bill frowns, his mind working through the implications. It is a subtle distinction, but a critical one. You are separating the man's actions from the company's obligations. You are upholding the sanctity of the code itself, showing it to be greater than any one of them. Thomas, you command. Count out 50 pieces of 8. Place them here. You indicate a clear spot on the table. Thomas, with trembling fingers, begins to count. The clink, clink, clink of the coins, methodical and final. While he counts, you address the men again. Jack's share of the plunder and his bonus for being first man over the rail are forfeit. That is his punishment for breaking our trust. That gold will be returned to the common pot, increasing the value of every other man's share. Quote, "You see Bill nods slowly. The justice is still there, sharp and satisfying. Jack is still being severely punished. But paying the compensation for his eye, it feels right. It feels like law, not just revenge. It prevents a festering grievance, the kind that could turn a man bitter enough to sabotage a voyage months from now. Are there any other claims for compensation?" You ask, your eyes scanning the room. "Ned, your arm. The cut was clean, no loss of use?" Young Ned, a boy of no more than 19, touches his shoulder through his shirt. "Healed fine, Rachel. Just a scar to frighten the girls with." A few men chuckle, the sound surprisingly easy. "Good." You wait until Thomas has finished his pile of 50 coins. That is the first pile, the debt of blood. Now, the second. Bonuses. You look around the room. The first man to spot the prize. The first to board. These were promised rewards. Jack won the boarding bonus, but has forfeited it. You pause. Does any other man claim a bonus earned during the fight? Silence. A few of the men who had been shouting about their own bravery earlier now look down at their boots, shamed by the memory. In the new, sober light of what almost happened, their petty claims seem ridiculous. No one? You say. Then the entire bonus pot remains with the common plunder. You have all just made yourselves a little richer with your honesty. This earns a few gruff smiles. You have turned their lack of greed into a reward, which leaves us with the final division, you declare, the common plunder. You look at the glittering hoard. Thomas will count it all. Every coin, every gem. We will establish its total value. From that, we will divide it into shares according to the articles. A share and a half for the quartermaster who was elected for that voyage, Graves. Graves puffs out his chest slightly. A share and a quarter for the petty officers. And 1 full share for every other man, except Jack. It is clear. It is simple. It is the code. You step back. Let the counting begin. What happens next is a small miracle. At first, the men just watch as Thomas begins the laborious task of sorting and stacking coins. But the silence feels awkward. Then Bill, with a grunt, lumbers forward. "Give over, cousin," he says, not unkindly to Thomas. "Your hands are shaking so much you're counting the same coin twice." He plunges his huge hands into the gold, his movements surprisingly deft, and begins creating neat stacks of 10. Spanish pieces here, French louis here, English crowns in the middle. Soon, Finn joins him, then Graves. Within minutes, half the crew is gathered around the table, not as rivals, but as partners in a common task. They call out counts to Thomas, who diligently records the numbers on his ledger. The scent of old gold and the constant, musical clatter of coins fills the room. Men who were at each other's throats an hour ago are now working shoulder to shoulder. A man finds a pearl necklace tangled with a ruby clasp and holds it up. "What's this worth, quartermaster?" He calls to you. 200 pieces if the pearls are sound, you estimate. Put it aside with the other jewelry. We'll divide the gems last. They begin to talk, not of grievances, but of the fight itself. "Remember when that big Spanish sergeant slipped on the lard from the galley?" One says, and a ripple of laughter goes through the group. "Aye," another shouts. "He went down like a felled oak. I thought Ned here was going to die laughing instead of fighting." Quote, you watch them, a cautious warmth spreading through your chest. The gold, which had been a symbol of their division, has become the instrument of their reconciliation. The shared, physical task of counting their earnings, of seeing the fruits of their collective labor stacked before them, is healing the wounds their paranoia inflicted. They are recounting their shared history, but this time as a source of pride, not bitterness. You look over at Tom Morgan. He stands apart, near the globe, watching the proceedings. He is smiling that same polite, serene smile. He even steps forward to help at one point, picking up a dropped doubloon and handing it to Bill with a nod. Bill claps him on the back and calls him a good lad. Morgan's smile never wavers, but you see it. He is a predator who has been forced to join the herd. He mimics their behavior perfectly, but his eyes are cold and watchful. He is studying their new dynamic, learning their strengths, filing away their weaknesses for later. This camaraderie, this rough brotherhood, is now his primary obstacle. He will work from within to dissolve it, not with grand gestures, but with quiet whispers and patient, poisonous kindness. Finally, the last coin is counted. Thomas, his face flushed with purpose, totals the figures on his ledger. "It is done," he announces, his voice filled with awe. He reads out the final tally, a number that makes several of the men whistle in disbelief. "Divide it," you command. The final division is swift and fair. Each man's shares counted out into a pouch. There are no arguments about the size of coins or the quality of gems. They accept what is given, their trust in the process absolute. When it is done, the great pile of gold is gone, replaced by a score of smaller, personal fortunes. Blackheart Bill hefts his pouch, the weight of it bringing a broad grin to his face. He looks over at Finn, who is staring at his own share with wide eyes. Bill walks over and nudges him. "There now, lad. Enough to buy your mother a proper house, eh? Or a tavern. A fine tavern." Finn looks up, a genuine, unguarded smile spreading across his face. The last pile of coins on the table is the small one, the 50 pieces of 8. You pick them up yourself. You walk over to One-Eyed Jack, who has remained silent throughout the entire process, watching with a haunted expression. You hold out the pouch. He looks at the coins, then at you. You see a storm of emotions in his one good eye: shame, gratitude, resentment. He has lost a fortune, but he has kept his life and received the blood price he was owed. He slowly takes the pouch from your hand. "The code is the code," is all you say. He nods, unable to speak. He turns and walks over to the chart of the Caribbean still spread on the table. He stares at the waters off the coast of Florida, his mind already on a different treasure, on his one final chance for redemption. The weight in the room has lifted. The air is clear. There is a feeling of new beginnings, of a clean slate. You look at these men, thieves, brawlers, and drunkards, and you see a crew. They are bound together now, not just by a signed contract, but by the memory of how close they came to destroying each other and how you pulled them back from the brink. They have a shared purpose, a fair division, and a leader they trust. It is a fragile peace, a captain's truce held together by your will and their greed. But for tonight, it is enough. Tonight, you can almost believe it will last. The last clink of a coin settling into a pouch echoes and dies. The room is left with the sound of breathing and the soft hiss of the candle. Outside, the first pale fingers of dawn are probing the edges of the window shutters, painting thin lines of gray light on the far wall. The air, once thick with the metallic tang of rage, now smells of beeswax, old paper, and the faint, clean scent of the coming morning. This is the quiet of the battlefield after the guns have fallen silent. It is a peace born of exhaustion and bought with a fortune you were willing to burn. The men stand in a loose circle around the now barren table, clutching their leather pouches. The weight is unfamiliar. For years their wealth has been a communal, abstract concept, a share of a future prize, a line of credit at a tavern. Now it is a solid, personal thing. It is the heft of a down payment on a new life. Blackheart Bill, surprisingly, is the first to break the spell. He doesn't swagger. He doesn't boast. He walks over to the window and pushes the shutters open fully. The cool, damp air of dawn rolls in, carrying the scent of wet earth and distant sea salt. He breathes it in, a deep, cleansing draft. "Smell that," he says, his back to the room. "Smells like land. Proper land." He turns, his face strangely somber in the gray light. "I ain't smelled that in 20 years without wondering which magistrate was waiting to stretch my neck on it." Quote. His words hang in the air, a simple, profound truth that resonates with every man in the room. They are no longer fugitives, at least not in this moment. They are men of means. They are, for the first time, free, not just from the law, but from the relentless, grinding necessity of the next prize. Finn, clutching his pouch to his chest as if it were a prayer book, looks at Thomas. "Sir," he begins, his voice hesitant. "Mr. Anstis. Bill said a man could buy a tavern with this. Is that true?" Thomas, startled to be addressed so respectfully, straightens his coat. He is back in his element now, a world of commerce and figures. A small one, yes. Or a good plot of land for farming, if you know the work. With this amount, a man could build a respectable life. He could become a citizen. The word citizen hangs in the air, as alien as angel. They had been subjects, then outlaws. The idea of being a citizen, a man with a stake in the world instead of just a claim on its loot, is a concept they have to turn over in their minds to see if it has any worth. Graves, the dour, scarred man who had been the Santa Elena's quartermaster, rubs his jaw thoughtfully. My brother has a shipyard in Charlestown. Always told me I was a fool for chasing Spanish gold when there was a fortune to be made in honest timber and pitch. He hefts his own pouch. Maybe I'll pay him a visit, see if he needs a partner. Quote, you watch them, a quiet ache of responsibility in your chest. You have not just given them gold, you have burdened them with choice. You've dragged them out of the simple, brutal world they understood, and stranded them on the shores of a new one, filled with ledgers and land deeds, and the terrifying prospect of a quiet life. You see the hope in their eyes, but you also see the fear. What does a wolf do when it's given a flock to shepherd instead of to hunt? Your gaze drifts to the corner. Tom Morgan is listening to this talk of futures, with an expression of beatific joy, as if he is a priest hearing the confessions of reformed sinners. He catches you looking and gives a small, deferential nod. It is a fine thing, quartermaster, he says, his voice soft enough to sound sincere. To see brave men find their harbor. He steps forward, moving with his usual quiet unobtrusiveness. Speaking of which, if we are to acquire a new vessel and supplies, perhaps your cousin could advise on the quietest ports? Some are watched more closely by the Navy than others. It would be a shame for our new company to stumble at the first hurdle. Quote, it is a perfectly reasonable, helpful question. It is also a masterful piece of intelligence gathering. He is politely asking for a map of your cousin's network, gauging the extent of Thomas's resources and influence right in front of you. Bill and Graves nod in agreement, seeing only the prudence in the cook's suggestion. A wise thought, Tom. You say, your voice even. We will discuss logistics later, all of us together. You subtly re-establish the hierarchy. Information is given to the company, not to individuals. He smiles, accepting the gentle rebuke without a flicker of annoyance. Of course, quartermaster. I was just thinking of the bellies I'll have to fill. He bows his head slightly and retreats, once again becoming a harmless shadow in the corner. But the move was made. A pawn advanced on the board. He is no longer just watching. He is probing. Thomas, oblivious to the undercurrent, clears his throat. Rachel, I don't know what to say. You saved them. You saved my home. He looks at you, his eyes filled with a new kind of respect, one that is no longer colored by familial exasperation. He is seeing you not as his chaotic pirate cousin, but as a force of nature he cannot comprehend but is deeply grateful to have on his side. The risk you took with the candle, he shudders at the memory. It wasn't a risk, Thomas, you say quietly, for his ears only. It was a calculation. They were fighting over a ghost. I just threatened to exercise it. Quote, you walk to the main table and pick up the signed articles. The parchment is heavy in your hand, a physical contract of lives and fortunes. Then, you pick up the oilskin packet. The room quiets again as all eyes turn to it. This is the future. You look at Jack. He is still standing by the large map, his single eye tracing coastlines. He looks lost. His grand betrayal has collapsed into a single conditional share and the charity of the crew he tried to cheat. He has the knowledge, but he has lost all power. Jack, you say. He turns to you, his expression guarded. The time for secrets is over. We are a company now. We sink or swim together. You place the signed articles in the center of the table. With deliberate, theatrical slowness, you begin to untie the wax-stiffened cords of the oilskin packet. The men crowd closer, their breathing shallow. Even Tom Morgan takes a step forward, his placid mask unable to entirely conceal a flicker of intense curiosity. This is the prize he had played for. The cords fall away. You unfold the 2 layers of oilskin, revealing a single sheet of vellum, yellowed and brittle with age. It is not a navigator's chart, full of rum lines and soundings. It is something far older. The coastline is drawn in a spidery, archaic hand. The lettering is ornate, faded Spanish script. But it is the markings on the sea that draw a collective gasp. There are strange symbols, notations of currents long since changed, and descriptions of landmarks on a shore that has been battered by a century of storms. And there, a few leagues off a crudely drawn inlet, is a cross. Next to it, a few spidery words. Acquiesce la capitana. Que Dios se apiade de su alma. Here lies the capitana. May God have mercy on her soul. It is real. The dream has just become a destination. Blackheart Bill reaches out a hand as if to touch it, then pulls back, as if fearing the paper would turn to dust. By all the devils, he breathes, he actually found it. A new energy fills the room, an electric current of pure, unadulterated purpose. The talk of taverns and shipyards fades, a momentary distraction. This is who they are. They are not citizens or farmers. They are treasure hunters. You have not given them a quiet life. You have given them one last glorious chase. This, you say, tapping the map, is our Bible and our law. We will guard it with our lives, because our lives depend on it. You look up, meeting the eyes of every man. We have work to do. We need a ship. We need a crew we can trust. Every man here and no more. We need to plan a voyage that will look like a simple trading run to anyone watching. We sail not for gold, but for silver, for a prize that will make us legends or corpses. Quote, you carefully fold the map and tuck it into the oilskin. You slip the packet inside your coat, the faint crinkle of the vellum a whisper against your ribs. It is your burden now, and your power. Get some rest, you command, your voice ringing with the clear authority of the quarterdeck. We've earned it, but be ready. The work starts at noon. The men nod, a unified crew. They begin to file out of the map room, not shuffling with suspicion, but walking with the confident stride of men who have a purpose. They clap each other on the back, their voices low and excited as they talk of the voyage ahead. The past is settled. The future is a single point on a secret map. And you are the one who must lead them there, through whatever storms and whatever betrayals lie in wait on the open sea. The door clicks shut behind the last of them, the sound echoing in the sudden, cavernous silence. For a long moment, you don't move. You just stand there in the center of the room, a statue carved from exhaustion. The air is cool now, scrubbed clean by the dawn, but you can still taste the ghosts of the night on your tongue. Stale rum, fear sweat, and the phantom smell of burning wax. Your hand instinctively goes to your coat, to the slight bulge where the oilskin packet rests against your ribs. It feels warm, as if it has absorbed all the heat and rage of the last few hours. Thomas is tidying up, his perfectionist nature reasserting itself in the face of chaos. He gathers the stray quills, stoppers the inkwell, and wipes a smudge of gold dust from the polished surface of the table with his handkerchief. He moves with the quiet, fussy energy of a man trying to impose order on a memory he desperately wants to forget. He avoids looking at you, perhaps afraid of what he'll see, or perhaps sensing that you are not fully present in the room with him. You walk to the window, the same one Bill had opened. The sun is a brilliant sliver over the distant hills, chasing the last purple shadows from the valleys. The plantation below is waking up. Smoke curls from a kitchen chimney, and you hear the distant, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer. It is a world of routines, of predictable sunrises and harvests. A world you fought to re-enter, and a world you just promised to leave behind all over again. Your mind drifts back to the candle flame, to the feel of the oilskin beginning to soften in its heat. The question Thomas dared not ask hangs in your thoughts. Would you have done it? The honest answer settles in your gut, a cold, heavy stone. Yes. In a heartbeat. You would have burned a treasure map that could buy a country to save a dozen broken men from themselves. That's the part of you that Thomas, with his ledgers and logic, will never understand. That's the part that still wears a captain's coat, even under the fine linen of a pardoned lady. It wasn't just about stopping a fight. It was about forcing them to see the truth of what they had built. A pirate society isn't a simple anarchy. It's a paradox, a brutal experiment in democracy conducted by the world's cast-offs. They fled the tyranny of kings and navy captains, only to create their own fierce system of laws. The articles they signed were more than a contract. They were a constitution. They guaranteed a voice, a share, and even a form of social security, a blood price for a lost eye or limb that no crown-commanded ship would ever offer a common sailor. You saw them, in their fury, forgetting the very principles that made their life possible. They were using the code as a cudgel, each man trying to bludgeon the others with his own interpretation. You simply held a mirror up to them, a warped, fiery mirror that showed them the ashes of their own creation. You remember the moment the tide turned, not with the map, but before it. When Bill, the bully and brute, handed a fistful of coins to Finn. It was not kindness, it was compromise. It was a coarse, clumsy gesture of restoration. A recognition that the fabric of their small society, once torn, had to be stitched back together, however crudely. The counting of the gold, the shared task, the grudging laughter, that was the enduring power of their world. For all its violence, the need for cooperation was the bedrock. On a ship in a storm, a man's grudge is less important than the strength of his back on a rope. You didn't teach them that. You only reminded them of what the sea had already taught them. But the cost. Gods, the cost. You close your eyes and see Jack's face, the raw crater where his eye used to be. You see Ned's unconscious flinch as he remembers the blade slicing into his shoulder. These men are walking ledgers of pain, their bodies, the parchment on which the price of their freedom is tallied. Every doubloon in those pouches they now clutch is weighted with a ghost. A Spanish soldier they cut down, a crewmate lost in the chaos. The boys you've seen swept from the rigging in a squall, their screams swallowed by the wind and waves. This life is a furnace, and it forges men into hard, sharp things, but it also consumes them, leaving behind nothing but stories and scars. And for what? You glance around the map room, at the charts depicting a world carved up by empires. The men you just saved were not born pirates. They were made. They were fishermen whose nets were declared illegal by a distant lord's decree. They were farmers whose lands were enclosed and given to sheep. They were sailors pressed into naval service, treated worse than animals, paid in pennies, and discarded when they were broken. Blackheart Bill wasn't born with a black heart. It was blackened for him by a world that saw him as nothing more than expendable muscle. They were all products of their time, the ragged, desperate children of a civilized world that had no place for them. Piracy was not their first choice. For many, it was the only choice left when every other door was slammed in their face. It was a declaration of war on a world that had long been at war with them. They chose a short life of liberty over a long one of servitude. Who were you, a pardoned woman, living in the comfort of her cousin's plantation, to judge them for it? Rachel? Thomas's voice is soft, pulling you back from the edge of that dark sea. Will you take some tea? You turn from the window. He stands there, holding two delicate porcelain cups, his hand steady now. In his eyes you see a flicker of the boy you grew up with, before the plantations and the ledgers, before you ran away to find your own horizons. Tea would be good, Thomas, thank you. He sets the cups down on the small writing desk, away from the scene of the crime. The act is so normal, so civilized, it feels absurd. You sit, the heavy oak chair creaking under your weight. You feel the map press against you, a constant reminder of the promise you made. You take a sip of the hot, sweet tea. It tastes of another life. A safe life. You think of Tom Morgan. You see his perfect signature, the quiet satisfaction in his eyes. He is the dark reflection of everything you've been pondering. He, too, is a product of this world. But while the others rage against it with blades and cannons, he has learned its most insidious lesson. That true power lies not in open rebellion, but in the quiet manipulation of the systems themselves. He understands the code better than anyone because he sees it not as a social contract, but as a web of levers and pulleys to move men like puppets. He feeds their greed, validates their paranoia, and sympathizes with their grievances, all while sharpening the knife he plans to slide between their ribs. He is the politician in the pirate den, the assassin, with a kind word and a patient heart. You have united them. You have given them a common enemy in the Spanish crown, and a common goal and a sunken treasure. But you have also given Tom Morgan exactly what he needs, a stable, trusting society to infiltrate. His failure tonight was a lesson for him, not a defeat. He knows now that he cannot break them apart with overt chaos. He will have to do it from within, with whispers and doubts, by positioning himself as your most loyal lieutenant. He will become your shadow, and he will wait. A shiver runs down your spine that has nothing to do with the morning chill. The voyage for the Capitana will be more than a treasure hunt. It will be a quiet, desperate war waged on the decks of a single ship, a battle for the very soul of your crew. And your antagonist is not a Spanish admiral or a Royal Navy captain. He is the polite, shy man humming a tune in the galley, the one who knows all their secrets, the one who is patiently waiting for you to make your first and last mistake. The map in your coat suddenly feels impossibly heavy, like a gravestone you have agreed to carry on your back across an ocean. The porcelain of the teacup is cool and smooth against your palms, a foreign object from a life you only pretend to live. Thomas sits opposite you, making no move to drink his own tea. He just watches you, his face a jumble of exhaustion, awe, and a deep, bottomless relief. The sun, climbing higher, now spills generously through the window, chasing the last of the shadows from the corners of the room. It illuminates the dust motes dancing in the air, tiny golden flecks in the sunbeams, like a phantom echo of the treasure that was just here. The room feels hollowed out, empty. You have faced down a mutiny, stared into the abyss of your crew's greed, and somehow emerged on the other side. You drain the last of your tea and set the cup down with a soft click that sounds deafening in the quiet. You rise from the chair, and the movement feels heavy, as if you've been sitting there for a week. Your bones ache. Not from a fight, but from the sheer, soul-deep weariness of holding a dozen men's lives and futures in your hands. "Thank you for the tea, Thomas," you say, and the simple courtesy feels like a line from a play. You are an actress, and your performance is over. "Where will you go?" he asks, his voice barely a whisper. The question is not about your destination, but about your state of being. Are you Rachel Wall, his pardoned cousin, or are you the quartermaster of the damned? You don't answer him with words. You simply give him a small, tired smile and walk to the door. You pause with your hand on the cool iron latch. "The men will need a place to rest," you say, looking back at him. "Unseen. And they'll need to be paid for their stay, from my share of the plantation's profits." Quote, Thomas just nods, his eyes wide. He is finally beginning to understand the currency of the world you inhabit. Loyalty is a commodity, and you have just invested in it. You pull the heavy door open and step out of the map room, leaving its ghosts and their arguments behind. The change is immediate and profound. The air that greets you is alive, cool and salty, and it feels as if you can finally breathe again. The dry, dusty scent of the past is replaced by the smell of damp earth, dew-soaked grass, and the vast, clean promise of the sea. The sun is warm on your face, a gentle benediction. You stand on the veranda for a long moment, simply listening. The night's rage has given way to the gentle symphony of a world at peace. You can hear the rhythmic sigh of small waves lapping against the pilings of the plantation's private dock. A flock of gulls wheels high overhead, their cries sharp and lonely, a sound that has followed you your entire life. But today, it doesn't sound like a warning, it sounds like freedom. The frantic, desperate energy of the conflict has dissipated, leaving behind a stillness that feels sacred. You begin to walk, your boots silent on the soft earth of the path leading away from the main house. You pass one of the bunkhouses where the crew has been quartered. The door is ajar. Through it, you don't see men sharpening knives or plotting betrayal. You see Blackheart Bill, the fearsome brute, sitting on a simple cot, his pouch of gold open in his lap. He is not counting it. He is just staring at it, his expression unreadable, as if he is trying to decipher a strange and beautiful language. In another corner, Finn is showing his silver locket to young Ned, who looks at it with genuine curiosity. They are quiet. They are men contemplating a future they never believed they would have. You have left them to their new beginnings, to the difficult, terrifying, and hopeful work of deciding who they will be now that they can be anyone they choose. You continue on, your path leading you towards the bluffs that overlook the water. The fear you felt, the cold knot of dread that Tom Morgan's presence inspires, is still there. It's a low hum beneath the surface, a shadow that the morning sun cannot entirely erase. You know this piece is fragile. You know that Morgan is a poison that you've allowed into your ship's water supply. He will work on them, on their fears and their greed, and the voyage for the Capitana will be a knife's edge from beginning to end. But that is a battle for another day, on another tide. For now, in this moment, you have won. You have wrestled their souls back from the brink, and the quiet contentment you feel is its own reward. You reach the edge of the bluff. Below you, the sea stretches out, a vast expanse of sapphire and hammered gold under the rising sun. The water is calm, the surface glittering as if scattered with a billion diamonds. A small fishing boat, its sail a splash of white against the blue, makes its slow way across the bay. It is a scene of immense, breathtaking peace. The sea, The source of so much chaos and violence in your life, the theater for all your sins, looks gentle today. It looks like it could wash a person clean. You slip your hand into your coat and feel the crinkle of the oilskin. The map. The future. A new set of chains, perhaps, but chains you have chosen for yourself. You think of the men, of Bill staring at his gold, of Graves planning a trip to see his brother, of Finn dreaming of a tavern. You don't know if they will succeed. The world is a hard place, especially for men like them. Many of them will likely drink or gamble their fortunes away, ending up back on a ship's deck with nothing but stories. But some of them might just make it. They might build that house, or buy that shipyard, or find a measure of peace under a roof of their own. You have given them that chance. That is all a captain can ever do. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves in the trees behind you, a soft, soothing whisper. You close your eyes, lifting your face to the sun, and for the first time in a very long time, you feel a quiet settle deep within you. Not the quiet of a predator waiting in ambush, but the quiet of a job well done. The quiet of a harbor reached after a long and violent storm. The past is settled. The future is unwritten. But this single, perfect moment of peace is real. It is yours. And it is enough. The sun climbs higher, the world grows brighter, and the memory of the dark, candlelit room begins to fade, like a dream upon waking. The story is over. The dust has settled, the coins are counted, and the ghosts have been laid to rest, for now. And here we must leave her. Standing on the edge of a new day, with the sun on her face and the weight of a new adventure resting in her coat. A woman of two worlds, caught between a pardoned future and a pirate's past, forever bound to the pull of the tide. I hope you enjoyed our journey into the shadowy world of pirates, into the heart of their code, and the depths of their greed. I hope it carried you away on its current. Now let the quiet of the morning settle around you too. Dim the lights of your own room, and let the gentle sounds of your own world soothe you. Sleep well and pleasant dreams.